Hi everyone, welcome to the second episode of a Fairytale Tango. So today we will be talking about a very common and yet a topic that's not been discussed that much, which is taboo related to miscarriages. So losing a baby during pregnancy or through miscarriages is still a very common problem, and many women still are not treated appropriately or with respect or care when such a thing happens. And usually, shame or guilt is like the most common emotion that comes to the surface in such a scenario. And there are women who actually keep quiet about their grief when this happens, and there is also the society that's still under-equipped to deal with such issues even today, even though it's a very common problem, and even though a lot of people go through this. uh, Personally, I feel like the society is still not that equipped to deal with this issue because we are so hush hush about it. So this problem has been existing for a very long time, and we don't feel that comfortable talking about this topic. So today we have with us Francis, right? I hope I'm pronouncing your name
Yeah.
correctly. So today we have with us Francis, and she will be talking with us about this and what exactly goes through a woman's mind when she goes through a miscarriage, and why are we not comfortable talking about this topic, and how do we deal with such a scenario? So we'll be digging deeper into that. So before we talk about that, I would like you to introduce yourself to the audience and
Hi,
tell them about what you do.
I'm Frances, Franny, and right now my main job is I have a business making sunglasses, and I also have three children. Spoiler: I ended up with three children, three boys, aged 12 to he was 5 on Sunday, so aged 12 to 5. And in between my first son, Dexter, and my second son, Felix, I had 7 miscarriages in between them. And I think that it's important that people who are going through this understand that they're not alone. And I feel that people don't talk about it enough. Like you have used the word almost like a taboo. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's cool. I don't think it's reasonable. And I really want people out there to know that they're not alone, and the way they're feeling is not wrong. There's no wrong or right way to deal with these things. And it's horrible. It's very horrible, and it's very hard physically and emotionally. And I know that I was very lucky to be able to have one child, never mind 3, which was literally a miracle. I mean, we were so surprised and blessed, and it's wonderful. But even if you have a baby after a miscarriage, that doesn't take away from the fact that you had a miscarriage, you had loss. And unfortunately, some of the emotions stay with you for a time, and you're not doing anything right or wrong. Everybody is different. Um,
I just wanted to start by asking, why did you want to talk about this topic? You did mention that you yourself have gone through the same emotions, you yourself have gone through the same situation. So, what do you want to share with the world about dealing with such an emotion and dealing with such a situation, as to what went through your mind and how exactly did you feel at that point of time?
I mean, a lot of people luckily only experience one miscarriage, but I physically am an exception. You know, it's very, very rare to have as many miscarriages as I did. So my personal experience is probably very different to a lot of different people's, but I feel like if I give a kind of brief picture of what happened, had my
Mhm.
son, and everything was fine. And then when he was 1 and a bit, we decided to try and have another baby. And I fell pregnant very quickly. and I was very happy and did everything that we were meant to do, you know, the doctors tell you to do. And I lost that baby at about 9 weeks, and it was very straightforward. I was going to the doctors to have a checkup, and I started bleeding, and I didn't know what was going on, because obviously when you bleed in a pregnancy, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're losing the baby. It's very important to know that. But I did lose the baby, and after that miscarriage, which was physically very straightforward, fortunately, in the UK, you get checked out often. It depends on the district that you live in, but you can go for a scan. They make sure that there's nothing left, that the baby definitely doesn't have a heartbeat, or that it's not still there, because that can happen as well. You know, a lot of women think that they're miscarrying and they're not. I know a lot of people have had that as well. So after the first miscarriage, we were like, this is horrible, but we can do it. We can do it. So we tried to get pregnant again, and I did. And so that was only 2 months after, and I lost that baby a little earlier. It was 6 or 7 weeks. Again, straightforward. It was a straightforward loss. Very little pain. For me, mostly it was just uncomfortable, like cramps. And then we tried to get pregnant again. And so that was my third pregnancy after having my son. And that one was worse, because I had scans, and they didn't know what was in there. Sorry, it's a lot of different information, you know, I'm trying to remember it. So I had a scan, and they were like, we don't know if the baby has a heartbeat or not. So I had another scan, and they said, we don't think the baby has a heartbeat, so we will leave you a week to try and go through the process naturally. And so that never happened. I didn't bleed or anything. So I went to the hospital, and they gave me a scan, and they said, the baby has a heartbeat, the baby's okay. And I was not expecting that, obviously. It was a surprise, a very big surprise. And so that was okay, until I went for my scan at 3 months, and the baby had died a couple of weeks before. So unfortunately, another problem is the lack of information in what's known as a missed miscarriage. So you can grow, your stomach grows, you're sick, you know, all the symptoms of pregnancy, and the baby is not growing. And I really want to stress that this, again, is very rare. I don't want to give paranoia to anybody in early stages of pregnancy before you can feel movement. It is rare, but unfortunately, it happened to me. And that baby actually found it had Down syndrome. So that's why it died. I think also it's probably relevant that I tell you a little bit about my mother. My mother went through what I went through. So there is something genetically wrong with us. She lost 7 babies as well, some to Down syndrome at different gestations. And she knows I'm doing this. She's fine with it. So it looked like when they found that out, I was only 25, so they found out that the baby had Downs, which is very, very, again, rare, especially in somebody of my age. But as a couple, we decided to take some time to heal, because I don't want to scare people. I got sepsis from this pregnancy loss. So I was quite sick. And so they did a procedure where they removed the baby. And sorry. So
That's okay.
they do in this country, well, it's all different everywhere. You can get rid of this bit. So sometimes when you miscarry, if it's an incomplete miscarriage, the baby does not go by itself. It's like it wants to stay in there, but it can't. And unfortunately, I got very sick from this, and I developed septicemia and lots of infections in my body coming from my womb. So I was in hospital for like in and out for the month, but we got it sorted. I had a second procedure that made everything go away, and we started to heal. And I think a lot of people, when they have a miscarriage, they go instinctually to, well, let's try this again. We got pregnant. We can do this again. We can try. We can repair the damage done by this loss. And depending on your mindset, that's fine. That's good. Physically, doctors recommend different things. But we decided as a couple to take some time to heal and stop trying for a baby. So we took some time. And eventually, when I felt like I was strong enough physically and mentally, both of us, because, you know, the babies have a dad as well, we tried again. And unfortunately, it happened again where the baby grew and I grew, but the baby didn't have a heartbeat when I went for a scan. So again, I had to have the procedure to make the baby come out again. And then I had 2 straightforward miscarriages reasonably early, but, you know, healthy, straightforward, early pregnancy loss, which, you know, it happens to 1 in 4 pregnancies. So when you think about it, it's so common, but nobody talks about it. And the only person I knew at this time that had gone through anything like what I was going through was my mother, who had been through this in the 90s. And she dealt with her loss by not wanting to talk about it, and that's okay. So she didn't feel able to talk about it. So I did talk to people. People, you know, people knew I was pregnant. They say, a problem I have is when people say, don't tell your friends till you're 12 weeks and you've had your scan and everything. But what we always said was that we would tell the people that we were pregnant, that we would tell if we lost the baby. So my close friends knew, and, you know, people knew I was pregnant. And so I don't think there's any shame in telling people early on in a pregnancy, because it's really good to have that support, especially if you've already been through a loss, or if there's any anxiety or anything. There's nothing wrong with telling people that you're pregnant. It's not. And there's nothing wrong with telling people if you lose a pregnancy. You've done nothing wrong. It's not your fault. It's a genetic mistake that nobody has any control over. And I mean, there are babies born healthily to drug addicts. So babies are resilient if they need to be born. And I don't ever want anyone having guilt, and the anxiety doesn't help. So I don't want to give that to anybody. My miscarriages were very unusual. And the babies were just not meant to be. You know, it was sad and it was horrible, but, you know, the way that I ended up dealing with it was I didn't do pregnancy tests, because if I didn't do a positive pregnancy test, I could pretend that it wasn't happening. And that was my way of dealing with it. And so it was my 5th wedding anniversary at this point. So it was our son was 5, and I knew I was pregnant, but I didn't do a test. And I explained the situation to my doctor, and I said, there is something in there. I don't know if it has a heartbeat. If it does have a heartbeat, we've made it to 12 weeks. That's excellent. And if it doesn't have a heartbeat, I need to be seen. And we went, and I was crying and apologizing to my husband because I felt so guilty, because it was my fault that my body wasn't making these babies right. It wasn't his fault. Even though there is no fault. That sounds ridiculous. But
I mean, yeah.
I still use this language, and I know it's not true, but genetically it was my my responsibility, I felt. And he used to tell me not to feel guilty and not to feel bad all the time. But he's amazing. You know, men all deal with different ways with this as well. And I do think it's important to remember that the baby has a sperm and an egg, and it's hard for the women in ways that it isn't hard for men, but it is hard for the men too. So my husband and I went for a scan, and the scan person said, "Why are you crying? There's a baby in there and you're at the end of your first trimester." So, I mean, that was one of the best days of my life, because we had been fighting for 4 years for this. And 4 years doesn't sound that long in words, but at the time it felt like a really long time to be going through this limbo of misery and anxiety and fear and worry. But yeah, my son was born, and he's amazing. I had an elective cesarean because I wanted to know that my baby was going to be out safe with doctors readily available. And yeah, he's great. He's wonderful. He's a horrible baby. Absolutely horrible. We didn't sleep for a year, but like we really did. It was awful. But something else is that the anxiety doesn't go away once the baby is born. If you are lucky enough to have your baby, the anxiety because of your journey is still present often. And an awareness that I also want to bring is that when women have a child after miscarriage, they are more prone to postnatal depression, unfortunately. So that's just something for people to keep an eye on, because you think you've done what you were trying to do all this time and you should be fine, and you will be fine, but it just takes some time sometimes. Yeah, and then I was breastfeeding a lot, and it turns out you can get pregnant when you're breastfeeding a lot. So I don't know what. I am a Catholic, and so I believe in God. And for me, I just felt like our third son was just a miracle blessing. And yeah, he's amazing too now. And I don't want to make women think that they can't be okay if they don't have their miracle baby. So, you know, because I'm lucky. I'm the lucky one. I know people who have stopped trying because it got too hard and too painful.
I mean, like you mentioned, as a woman, we often feel that when such a scenario, when we are in such a situation, it's often our fault that because, and I personally believe that to a certain extent it comes to us automatically because it's a part of our body, right? So when we lose something which is so close to us, we definitely feel that emotion of stress, anger, or we are in completely in that we go into that stress mode. So what exactly? I mean, I'm pretty sure that women do face that, but at the same time, they're not aware of how exactly to deal with those emotions because that exact support system might not be present around them. Like you said, there are a lot of people who still don't talk much about it. You know, too many. There might be a lot of people around you who may have gone through similar situations, who may have dealt with the same situation, but at the same time, they've been very quiet about it. And when you go through a similar situation, you don't have the right kind of information to deal with it. You don't have the right kind of support around you to deal with it. So I guess that also is an added pressure along with the stress that you face personally,
Yeah.
right? So what do you think about that?
I mean, I think that there is not enough support available anywhere post miscarriage. I know there are different charities depending on your country that you live in or the area that you live in. But what I do feel is that if you if you have a miscarriage and you say, I've had a miscarriage, if you're in a room of women, the women, they say, I did too. And I didn't know how to talk about it. And, or, oh, I had a miscarriage, but I only had one. And so it almost, to me, in the environment that I'm living in, it's almost like this horrible secret club that nobody knows it. Nobody knows that you're a part of it until someone is brave enough to say, I've had a miscarriage. And then the people, they want to tell you their story. They have this grief, this burden that it builds up in them. And I think that that's really toxic as well, to keep all this internalized, sad, negative emotions. So what I would say is I think that it's helpful if you can talk. It just takes the first brave person to say, I've had a miscarriage, and then you're not alone. You're not alone at all. And it's so prevalent. It's everywhere. It's just people don't talk about it. It's not a taboo, and they're all different, and they're all for different reasons. And this silence, this fear of mentioning it is very toxic. It's very negative. And we are all women. Some of us are mothers, some of us are mothers to be. And really supporting one another as women is so important. I mean, in every way in life. We were talking about feminism the other day and how it takes different forms, but as women we are linked, and I think just show you can ask them what they need, what they want. Some people want to be left alone, some people want to talk, some people, you know, we all deal in different ways. But once the physical stuff is over with, there's still the emotional, and that, in my opinion, healthcare needs to recognize the mental aspects of miscarrying as well as the physical, because it's not just done. It's not. It's a process of healing physically and mentally. I've also read recently that a lot of women who experience miscarriages can suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. And with PTSD, it doesn't just disappear. And again, if we take away the stigma of you've lost your baby and your body is fine now, but your mind and your heart are damaged in a way, you know, aftercare to me is very important. You know, checking in with people, even if you think it's been a long time, even if you think, oh, it's been a few weeks, you still need to ask the people who they are and how they are, because, you know, it's different for everyone. But I do think that, unfortunately, financially, counselling and psychotherapy and everything is not always an option available. And like I said, it varies so much. But, you know, charity, there are a lot of charities. In this country, there's the Tommy's charity, which is really amazing. And they do a lot of research into the physical causes of pregnancy loss. And they also provide support after a pregnancy loss. And that includes stillbirth as well. And they're very amazing. And I mean, I know you're in India, so I don't know what's available there. In the States, where my mom was miscarrying, again, it was very different because it's a private medical system. We have public healthcare here, which is amazing. And it's something that I don't take for granted for a second. But there are ways, and just talking is very cathartic in a lot of those ways, for sure.
I mean, like you mentioned, just like your country, I guess even in our country, there are many facilities in place. I wouldn't say that there aren't. I think most of the countries nowadays recognize the fact that this is happening and this is quite common. I mean, that recognition and that acknowledgement itself is the first step. And a lot of people know that these facilities are available, but at the same time, you know, taking that like you mentioned previously about how you feel very shy to get out there and talk about it, or to get out there and like take that first step to go and access those facilities to deal with your emotions, and to deal with what you are feeling at that point of time after this happens. So that that part is somewhat still missing in our society.
Yeah, definitely.
When
Because,
so I guess,
yeah,
yeah.
it's, I don't, financially, I don't know how to suggest um, a cure for that, because obviously it's expensive, and mental health already is very underfunded everywhere, I think, really, in the world. So that's the problem. Is I see miscarriage almost as like its own separate mental health issue, because it does lead to this anxiety. It can lead to this depression, this post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, I'm not ashamed. I still take medication for anxiety, and I never took it before I miscarried. And I had my miscarriage 7 years ago, and I'm still taking medication for this anxiety that it put into me, which I just do what I got to do. And so I don't mind taking medication. I don't see it as a weakness. And however you deal with the implications of the emotional and physical is not, I don't judge. Um, One thing that I made a big note of when I was making my notes while I was waiting in a room full of pregnant women with my friend was, I feel personally that social media is definitely something that's of relevance when it comes to miscarrying in the 21st century. Social media, in my opinion, can be very harmful, and it can be very helpful in a lot of different ways. You understand, we both have this huge social media aspect of our lives where we are trying to do good and create happiness and support and networks and everything. And that's one of the things that I think is so great that you're doing, because we have to support one another. But a lot of people can be very insensitive with regards to social media posting, and I think that people are becoming more aware of it. And so, for example, I remember Anne Hathaway, the actress, who, I mean, I think she's amazing. She struggled with infertility, and she didn't go too into detail, but when she posted her pregnancy announcement, she said, "I don't want you to think this was an easy journey for me, and I'm thinking of you who are going through a journey or a struggle, be it miscarrying or infertility, because it is very, very common. Infertility and miscarriage are obviously different, but they are very linked in a lot of ways." Also, I wanted to bring up Chrissy Teigen lost a baby at 20 weeks last year, and Meghan Markle also wrote an essay about losing her baby. I think her miscarriage was quite early, not to take away from how horrible it was, but I did think that it was very brave of these women to come out, and they both said that the reason that they did this is to try and create awareness, and they were criticized quite heavily for the way that they did it. Obviously, Meghan Markle wrote an essay that was like an open essay, and Chrissy Teigen posted about it online. And I think that it's really horrible that they got negativity, because it was their body, their loss, their choice, their bravery and courage to try and break the stigma. And they did get criticism for that, like I said. And I mean, they probably knew that they must have known as public figures that they were going to get mixed reactions to their posting and how much they had shared. But I think it was a good start that people are acknowledging publicly, who are public figures, who are women that are looked up to by a lot of people, to acknowledge that there is no class or wealth that stops this. Money can't buy you a happy baby. It can help, because there are medical treatments and tests that can be done. But it happens to royalty. So, well, she wouldn't want me to call her royal, but you know, it can happen to anyone. Sorry, Megan.
Yeah.
Married a prince. And I really think that was really brave of them, both of them. And they just did it in the way that they felt was relevant. And if that helped one person feel like they weren't alone, that's a good thing, for sure. But I think sensitivity in social media is very important, and a lot of people post a lot of scam pictures, very blasé, and so happy for them, but I'm sad for people that can't do that. I never did that, by the way. Never did that. I was too nervous to, you know. But yes,
I mean, yeah, it's a big deal to announce it to the world when you're talking about such a sensitive topic with which you are dealing with, and you know you're sharing it with the world. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I got quite a lot of messages when both my sons, my youngest sons, were born, saying, "Who's that baby? You had a baby?" And I'm like, "We had a baby. We just didn't announce it to the world." Sorry, not sorry. I was so happy. I didn't care. So, I actually made also the societal pressures of motherhood and expectations that women have placed on them. Obviously, men are able to reproduce for longer in their life because they don't go through the menopause and they don't suffer from egg degradation. And obviously, as you get older, there are increased risks with regards to certain illnesses and conditions. And I do feel that society can be very insensitive when it comes to suggesting when a woman should have a baby. I mean, for example, a lot of people, when they get married, it's now like, oh, you got married, so you're going to have a baby, or, oh, you've been together for a few years, are you going to have a baby, or, you know, oh, you're a woman, are you going to have a baby? And I don't think that's fair, because again, a lot of people are going through things and you don't know that. And biological pressure, I mean, a lot of women try and have children before the age of 40, but post 35 they are classed as what's the word, old, basically. I can't remember the word that they use in England, but you're geriatric. You're a geriatric mother if you're over 35 in this country. When you have,
I didn't know that.
when you're pregnant, yeah. So I'm a geriatric mother potential. Well, I can't have any more babies, but yeah, it's geriatric, which is a very sensitive term for women who are only 35. And we talked the other day about career pressure and how women are under pressure to do a lot more than just be a mother now. And so there's a lot of expectation on women now to forge a successful career, as well as maintaining relationships, buying a house, being educated, having hobbies. And I think that some women are subtly pressurized to concentrate on other areas of their life before they try and have a child. And again, each woman can make their own decision, and sometimes accidental pregnancies happen. But I do think it's difficult that women can't focus on motherhood and that they are expected to be focusing on lots of other areas of life at the same time. And I do believe that women of reproductive ages can be persecuted in the workplace because, again, there is this expectation of between the ages of 25 and 35 that they will be taking time off to have children. And it's obviously not that straightforward. And I know it's technically illegal to discriminate against that kind of thing, but I do believe it happens. And I hate it, because women being forced to prioritize one or the other is horrible. it's just not fair at all. And I think that might be why there is also this increased society of delaying being pregnant. Also, you know, egg freezing, that kind of thing. None of it is an easy option, I don't think. So, you know, there are lots of different options, and if you are wealthy, these options are more available to you. But the average woman, it's just not feasible to have eggs frozen, or, you know, to have specific forms of IVF which now exist. And I hope that women feel comfortable enough to make their own decisions on what needs to be prioritized when it comes to having a child, having a career, having a relationship, and such.
I mean, like what you mentioned, that all the women nowadays have an extra social pressure, you know, like like you mentioned, we are supposed to work, we're supposed to earn for the family, we're supposed to take care of a lot of other things apart from just, you know, being a mother, having a baby, and taking care of the baby. So ultimately there is a lot of social pressure that's created around us, and similarly when we go through a situation like this where we've had a miscarriage, or when another person close to us is having a miscarriage, we often see them being withdrawn from uh, the people around them, from their surroundings for quite a while, and this happens very commonly. So, how do you think it affects one socially when they go through a situation like that? Like, did you face anything like that when you went through a miscarriage? Did
Yeah, I
you
really
get
did.
withdrawn?
I really did. A lot of people wanted to get me drunk, which was kind of stupid of them. But yes, I felt the need to put my face back on and get on with life. There was no time allowance given to try and recover. A lot of people didn't expect me to, they wanted me to be sociable, they wanted me to continue my life as I did before. And again, people do deal different ways. You know, some people do want to go out drinking, some people do want to concentrate on work for a little while. I actually remember going to the gym while I was having a miscarriage because I didn't know what to do with myself. So I just went to the gym, and yeah, I just tried to exercise through it, really. And each and every miscarriage is different as well, even if you have the same couple and the physical circumstances of the miscarriage are the same or similar. That doesn't mean that they're going to feel the same way as they did beforehand. And I think that what's really good is if somebody asks you what you need, what do you want? Do you want to stay at home? Do you want to go out and try and distract yourself? Do you want to talk? Do you want to not talk? You know, it's very important to me to deal with each person in the individual circumstance, because these things take time, and I definitely was under pressure from everybody, even my mother. Oh, go out, go for dinner with your husband, you know, go out to a party. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to do that. And I was lucky enough that we had our son and he needed his mother. So in a way that forced me to continue to function more than I probably would have done if I didn't have a baby and a child at home that needed me. But yeah, give time. Time is very important, and no joking about, oh, I'm going to try again. You know, the people will let you know when they're ready, or if they want to talk about it. I think. Yeah, it's hard. It was very different each miscarriage for me, how I dealt with it, how I felt afterwards. And sometimes I was very good at being like, that's okay, we'll try again. And then other times I was like, I don't never want to do that again. And I am glad I persevered, obviously, but I'm one of the ones. I don't presume that everyone will be as fortunate as me.
I mean, like you mentioned,
Pardon?
different people will have different grief process or
Mm-hmm.
different grief period. And some people might take less time, some people might take more time. And I guess that's the scenario with all the difficult situations that we deal in. Each person deals with it in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And having that giving each person that space to deal with their own situation and to deal with their own emotions at that point of time. And then, it allows you, I think, personally to come out of it and, function in a normal way and function in the normal life that you have outside. So I guess it takes a little while, but for some people it might take a little more while to deal with it, which is okay again, which is completely fine. You don't have to act normal immediately after having a miscarriage. And like you mentioned, you don't have to immediately try for another baby after
Mhm.
having a miscarriage. I mean, it's your body. I guess you need to deal with what happened to your body. You need to deal with what happened physically and emotionally, which is quite a lot. So it definitely takes a while to, process all that and then get back to normal. So I guess what
I
you're
mean, I'm
saying
still
makes sense.
processing. You know, I do also think that employers, uh, I know there's no set regulation in this country of any form of like compassionate leave regarding a miscarriage, but I do think that if people are employers, it is important that again they are compassionate, they are kind to any employees going through a loss. A loss of a baby, albeit an unborn baby, is a loss and it is grief. It is like death. It is death. And if somebody loses someone close to them, they deal with it differently, just as they do if they when they lose a baby, if they lose a baby. And I would hope that it could be compassion. I think compassion is a very, very key thing. It's really one of the only things that you can use to heal, because you have to have compassion to yourself as well. You have to look after one another and yourself, and it's not a quick period either, so you don't need to rush that grieving process, because as I said, a lot of people are like, oh well, get on with it, but that's not the way it works at all. It just doesn't work that way. It would be nice if it did, if you could just turn your frown upside down, but it's not possible at all.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it would be really great if all women start talking about it. If you go through a similar situation, just come up and open up about it so that you can make the other person also talk about it and share their feelings about how they are processing those emotions or what they are exactly going through. Because that at that point of time, that kind of compassion definitely helps.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, there are now a lot of forums and discussion sites and like social media groups, and I think they're really good. I think that if you can't get that support in person and that understanding, that group understanding, getting it online is a good way to do it, to remind you that you're not alone, you're not the only one who's been through this. And yeah, I think that those groups are really great. And I know Tommy's charity in the UK really encourages like forum chats and discussions and support groups, digital, if not in person, because like especially during COVID, I think that these in-person support groups, which they do exist, I never went to them. I didn't want to. I didn't feel that they would achieve anything, but obviously COVID has sort of prevented those things. So there are a lot of online resources that you can look into that will hopefully make people not feel alone, definitely.
So the whole point of these episodes is I ask people as to what is the most biggest fear or the challenge that they have faced in their life and how they overcame it, which you did tell us that you did not, you took your own time, you processed your own emotions, and you slowly, moved on with your life, and finally you have your three amazing kids.
I
So
don't want people to think I'm a hypocrite though, because I'm so lucky. Like, I'm so lucky. I still now can't believe I have got three kids. But yeah, yeah, I could do it. Well, yeah, going through the miscarriages was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was horrible. It was awful, physically and mentally, and it was so prolonged, and I did feel very alone a lot of the time. I felt very jealous of people who were able to have children easily, and I think the resentment is definitely quite possibly another part of recovering, because you are jealous. You know, you see someone with a pregnant bum and you are jealous, you resent them, you wish it was you, and I am very lucky that I got through the other side, and I am stronger for it. I'm stronger for overcoming these things. I definitely think communication is key. Talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your partner. Be honest with your partner as well, because they've lost a baby, or if you don't have a partner to talk to, if it's a solo pregnancy, talk to your friends, talk to your family, go on forums, be compassionate to yourself, take care of yourself, and take time to heal. And hopefully your body will let you know what is right in your individual circumstances, because it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And if you feel ready to try again, that's okay. And if you don't want to try again, that's okay, because you know you're strong and you've got this. And even if the end is not the ideal pictured, there are other options. You know, adoption is a really wonderful thing to do, or fostering, because there are a lot of babies out there that don't have parents as dedicated as ones that want to try and adopt or care through foster. Definitely. And I'm so sorry for everybody who has to go through it, because it's horrible, it's really awful, and it's sad, but it will get better. It will get better. Time does heal in a lot of ways, and I just hope everybody gets what they want as much as they can, because yeah, I mean, they're my life, they're my everything. Well, you know, they're my life. My whole life is based around them. So, but you know, I still would have done stuff. I probably would have, you know, an amazing business if I hadn't had children at this point.
So, what do you look back at these experiences that you've had, the challenges that you have overcome, and how do you feel about yourself today as to how you have become? And when you look back at all the experiences that you went through, how does it make you feel today?
I'm proud of myself. I'm very proud of myself, because I have overcome far more than I ever thought I would be able to overcome. And if you had told me what it was going to be like at the beginning, I would have thought I can't go through that. And I am very lucky. Obviously, I feel like I'm the luckiest woman in the world. And people can surprise themselves with what they can get through and survive. And you know, as women, we are amazing, we are strong, we are resilient, and support one another and be kind. I'm very fortunate, like I said, and I wouldn't change a thing, because I'm here. And as horrible as all these things are, they build you to be the person that you are. And they say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I do believe that. You know, you are the sum of your experiences in life, good and bad. And the bad has as much impact as the good ones. And so, yeah, I'm really proud of myself. And still healing. I cried earlier. It's still very sad. Still get really anxious about it. Like, being in a room with loads of pregnant women makes me, quite frankly, uncomfortable. But actually, one thing that I think I would like to actually mention is what happens when you have had pregnancy loss and someone close to you gets pregnant. Because that's something that I know a lot of people feel shame about. And when I was trying to have another baby, my best friend got pregnant accidentally. And quite honestly, I was an absolute wreck. For about 2 weeks, I was a mess. And it was horrible. And I don't want people to feel that the emotions that they feel towards these people are anything other than normal, because if you're trying to have a baby or you've experienced pregnancy loss, there is going to be jealousy, there can be resentment, there can be anger, frustration. It can very much test the relationship that you have with somebody who's pregnant as well. And I just really don't ever want anybody to feel ashamed. I'll see you later. Bye.